so this is week 2 of our message series called Christian Atheist. When we first hear that phrase, it kind of seems oxymoronic. It doesn't really make sense. With Christian and atheist in the same phrase. Well, let's look at kind of what those two words mean. What is a Christian? Somebody give me a really short version of what is a Christian. Follower of Jesus. Somebody who believes in God, believes in Jesus, who follows Jesus, has accepted Him as their Savior. And what is an atheist? I just heard kind of a rumble, but I'm going to assume that rumble was somebody who doesn't believe in God, right? An atheist is somebody who would say, I don't believe in God, and therefore I live my life in a way as if there was no God. So then if we put those together, what we get as a Christian atheist is somebody who would say, yes, I believe in God, yet I still live my life as if He didn't exist. Sadly, this is a very common thing today, even within the church. In fact, if you were with us last week, I told you that 3 out of every 4 people in America, when they were polled, said that they believed in God. 7 out of 10, 70% of the people polled, not only said that they believed in a God, but that they believed in the God of that Bible under your chairs, and that they believed that Jesus was in fact the Son of God. Yet, 70% of people in America don't follow the principles that Jesus taught. 70% of people in America, 70% of people in the church don't live a life that reflects the principles of Jesus. So can that number be true? Last week we talked about this idea that I believe in God, but I don't really know Him. Right? You can go to church your whole life and believe that God exists. I did. But have no idea who He really is. That was my story for 27 years. You would ask me if I believed in God. Yes, 100%. I believed everything in the Bible was true, but I didn't know it. Next week is probably my favorite topic. It's going to be, I believe in God, but I don't really want to go over it. Right? I want to get my go to heaven ticket stamped, right? So that way I'm good. I'm going to get to heaven. But I don't want to really get too crazy about this whole Jesus thing. I don't want to be a fanatic in any way. But tonight we're going to talk about a very serious topic. That's those who believe in God, yet they don't fear Him. That word fear kind of gets a bad rap, but we're going to break that down. What does that really mean? Last week I told you that there was something that existed called cultural Christianity. That in our country, for the most part, if you're nothing else, you just kind of default to being a Christian a lot of times. If you don't have any real religion, you'll just say, I'm a Christian, I guess. Cultural Christianity. Tonight I want to talk to you about something called customized Christianity, something that has infiltrated our churches on a large scale. We believe in God, but I want to take the parts of God I like. Right? I want to take the parts that fit my lifestyle, the parts that make me feel good. I want to keep those, but I don't want to take some of this over here. I want to reject the parts of God that I don't like. The parts of God that tell me that maybe I need to change something in my life, that something isn't up to par. And we treat God sort of like a buffet. This is not only common in our culture, but again, this is very, very common in our church. For example, when I was a kid, we basically had 3 flavors of ice cream. Chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla. If you were like doing really good for yourself, you get the vanilla that has like some of the chocolate syrup like swirled in it, and you thought you were high class. But that's all we had. When we were getting ice cream, we were getting chocolate, strawberry, or vanilla. And then there came a day when a glorious place called Baskin Robbins opened up. They didn't just have 3. They had 31 different flavors. They disrupted the holy trinity of ice cream and brought in 31 flavors. And you could go in and get those little pink spoons. I don't even know if they're pink anymore, but you get the little pink spoons and they'd let you go sample everyone. You'd be full before you ever ordered it. And it was amazing. Suddenly we had so many more choices. Culture has moved in the same direction, where we get to sample everything and kind of see what we want and choose what we want. Nowadays you can customize literally anything. You can go, most sneaker companies, you can go online and customize your own shoes and get them mailed to you. You can customize your toilet paper. In my Auburn bathroom, I used to have Alabama toilet paper. You're welcome. You can get a customized bobblehead if you want to spend the money. You can get yourself made into a bobblehead for your desk. You can even customize a potential boyfriend or girlfriend on the internet. I want a boyfriend or a girlfriend who's romantic, who travels, who loves old movies, who writes poetry, while serving meals to the poor by candlelight on horseback. He needs to be 6'1" and blonde. You can customize everything in life anymore. In fact, restaurants have taken this to an art form. According to their website, the fast food chain Sonic says that they have 3.5 million different flavor combinations for drinks. 3.5 million. Starbucks, the king of coffee. You can get anything any way you want. You actually don't even have to like coffee to drink Starbucks, because you don't ever have to taste coffee. Everything in our world is custom. Everything is designed for us. The church is no different. People are moving towards a customized version of their faith. God once created us in His image, and now mankind has returned the favor and began to create God in their own image. I'll take the love of God because I like that, but I don't want to try it. I'll take the mercy of God because I need that, but I want nothing to do with His judgment. I'll take His blessings in my life, but this whole take up your cross and follow me thing, it's not really for me. There's parts of the Bible that I really like, and I love, and I embrace, and I want to hear more and more about those things. But then there's other parts, since I'm in charge, since I'm the boss, I don't really want to apply to my life. And so I'm not going to. I love the part that God has a plan for my life. He wants to bless me and prosper me, and He's not going to harm me. He gives me hope for a future. But what about the thing that says that I have to stay pure until I'm married? I mean, who does that nowadays? That's outdated, right? God doesn't understand. I don't want that part. I love the God that works all things together for the good for those who are called according to His purpose. I like that God. Right? That means when I'm having a bad day, I know that God's somehow going to work the things in my life together. I want that God. But the God who tells me I need to manage my resources wisely and for His glory, be generous to others, who does He think He is? I don't want that God. I love the God that says He's going to bless me coming in and going out, but listen, He can have Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights, but my nights and weekends, those are kind of my time. And I'm going to do me on those times. It's customized Christianity. People who believe in God, but they have no reverence or fear of who He is. Psalm 36, David is writing about the sinfulness of mankind. In fact, if you know his story, you would eventually recognize just how sinful he himself was as well. And this is what he says. It says, sin whispers to the wicked deep within their hearts. They have no fear of God to restrain them. In their blind conceit, they cannot see how wicked they really are. Sin whispers to the wicked. What do you think it says? When sin whispers in your ear, what does it say? It's not really a big deal, right? Just do what you want to do. The Bible, like, it's good for something. Isn't it kind of old? Isn't it kind of out of date with culture? Hey, you know what? You're saved, right? You're going to heaven. So what does it really matter what you do? It's your body. You can do what you want. Don't let them judge you. Don't let them impose their values on you. Sin whispers to the wicked. You can believe in God, but you don't need to take Him that seriously. David says they have no fear of God to restrain them, to change them, to conform them to the image of Christ. And so they just do whatever they want, whatever feels good. Let me ask you a question. What if this verse was talking about us? What if this verse was talking about you? What if this verse is talking about the majority of Christians in the way that we've customized our own faith? What if we're blind to our own self-centeredness? What if we really have an honest, true, reverent fear of God to restrain us? And I want to acknowledge that when we talk about the fear of God, it's kind of tricky. So I've been in a lot of prayer this week. It's not a subject I really like addressing in front of people because it really can be tricky. So I want to be careful about this. See, years ago, before you guys really have any memories in church, this pendulum kind of swung all the way over to this one side, where churches were all about the hellfire and brimstone preaching. Right? They get up in front of you and they scream at you and tell you turn or burn, everybody's going to hell, and they try to scare you into salvation somehow. And they went way over to this one side. And then in recent years, the pendulum has swung all the way back over to the other side, where now we have this hippie Jesus in a van down by the river who just says everything's fine. Don't worry. Enjoy your life. Do what you want. I love you, and whatever you do, I accept you. I accept every part of your life. It's fine. It's all mercy. It's all love. We need to be really careful, because here's the thing. The justice of God is true, but it's incomplete. And the grace of God is also true, but it's incomplete. When Jesus came, he was full of grace and truth. You don't get to pick one attribute of God and chase that down as if that's all that there is. He's an all or nothing type of God. So when we talk about this, we have to be really careful. We don't want to move into legalism, which is this idea that if you don't follow this list of things, then God doesn't love you, and he wants nothing to do with you. Because that's not who God is. But we also don't want to get into this idea of something called spiritual license, which is God loves you, so just do whatever. It's fine. So how do we balance that tension? How do we understand his love and yet live in a way that is reverent and fearful of God? I'm going to give you a formula that isn't perfect. It's something that I feel like is a good way to explain it. In my attempt to kind of help us to understand a little bit more what it means to have a reverent fear of God. Not this idea that, oh, God's going to get me if I mess up, if I don't pray the right way, if I don't pray at all, if I do something wrong. Like he's up there and he's waiting and he's ready. Like he just can't wait to punish me. Not that kind of a fear of God. But this is how I would say it. Loving God plus respecting God equals fearing God. Now let me put that in our terms so it'll be a little bit easier to understand. I have the privilege of serving in this church under Pastor Greg. Most of you know who he is. He's a great man. He's been in ministry. He's literally been preaching for the same amount of years that I've been alive. So he's been doing this a long time. I have a reverent fear of Pastor Greg, but in a healthy and loving and honoring way. We spend time together. His door is always open to me when I need it. He invests in me. I love him as a person, and yet I respect the office of the senior pastor that he holds at this church. And so as a person, I love him, and because he's a man of God positioned over me, I respect him. So that love plus the respect equals a reverence, or a reverent fear of who he is. Or how about my kids? I know y'all probably get so sick of me using my kids when I'm up here talking to you guys, but it's an easy way for me to relate things to you. My girls love their dad. They respect me as their dad. They love the dad that loves them no matter what. No matter what they do. I may not always like the things they do, but I always love them and they know it. They love the dad who plays with them and acts silly with them and who holds them when they're hurt or upset. They love that dad. The dad who gets mad with them, or pretends at least to get mad with them when they're mad at their friends at school. But they also respect their dad who makes the rules. They respect their dad who will spank their bottoms if they don't behave. Who will discipline them, who will correct them. The dad who sometimes just says no and means it. So their love plus their respect equals a reverent fear of me. They're not afraid of me, like every time I walk in the house they go hide in the corner. It's a reverence that they have for their Father. Now you take God and you multiply that times infinity. Because God isn't human like we are. We love him, the Bible says, because he first loved us. Because that's the only way we even know what love is. That while we were sinners, in the middle of our mess, completely separated from him, no interest in him whatsoever, he still loved us exactly where we were when we didn't deserve it. It's not just what he does, the Bible says it's who he is. And because of that, we love him in return. It's honestly our only reasonable response. To say, God, I love you, but I respect you and honor you because you're a holy God. I love you as this God that's full of grace and mercy, but I respect you as a righteous judge. And you may ask me to do some things that are weird and uncomfortable and things that I don't want to do. But because I love you and because I respect you, and I want to have reverence for you, I want to fear and honor you with obedience in everything that I do. But sadly, in the world today, when we mention things like the fear of God, it automatically kind of goes to a bad place. Look, I don't want to serve some God. I got to get afraid. That's not who God is. Jesus was all about love. I don't want to be afraid of God. It's because we don't understand. We need to understand that the fear of God is not a bad thing. It's actually a righteous thing. It's actually a liberating and a freeing thing for us. And it's full of promises and blessings. In fact, when we look at just the fear of God only in Proverbs, we see promise after promise after promise. How God says the fear of the Lord leads to blessings and goodness. I'm just going to read a few of them. Proverbs 9:10. Most of you know this. Says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Where does wisdom start? It starts from having a loving and reverent respect and fear of God. You want to be wise? You want to make good life decisions? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Proverbs 14 says the fear of the Lord is the fountain of life, turning a person from the snares of death. It takes you out of the things that are destroying you, whether you even realize in the moment that they are, and it brings you into the blessings that God has for you. Proverbs 22 says, true humility and fear of the Lord lead to riches and honor and a long life. The fear of God is not something that we should shy away from. It's something we should lean into. That we have a God who's given us access to Him because of Jesus. That the God of the universe wants us and allows us just to speak. That He would even care what I have to say is amazing. That God I can't help but love. The God who created me to be in a relationship with Him. But I also have to have a respect and an honor and an awe of the God who created the universe in mere words. Who gave me a relationship that I did not deserve and had no right to. It's love plus respect that equals a reverent fear of God. One of the greatest stories in the Bible about this subject is in Genesis 22. And this story to me is still, as many times I've read it, it's really hard for me to kind of wrap my whole head around. When God asked Abraham, whose greatest desire in life was to have a son. That was his greatest desire. And for decade after decade after decade after decade, he waited. Finally, he has a son. And then God asks him, he says, Abraham, go sacrifice the son that you love, your only son. The thing that you wanted the most, the thing that you've waited on the most in life. Sacrifice him. Abraham, because he loves God, because he respects God, because he fears God, he obeys him. He takes his son up this mountain, he lays him on an altar, he takes a knife, he lifts it above his son that he loves with all of his heart, the object of his prayers and the greatest human desire he had. And he prepares to obey God in the most difficult situation imaginable. Then an angel of the Lord mercifully stays the hand of Abraham and he says, don't lay a hand on this boy, don't do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. If you're a note taker, I want you to write this down. The greatest evidence of a reverent fear of God in your life is complete obedience to God. The greatest evidence of the fear of God is complete obedience to God. It's not partial obedience. It's not, listen, I'll do what you say as long as it kind of doesn't put me too far out of the way. It really just depends on what it is. It's not a delayed obedience. I'll do it when I get around to it, when I have time. Life's a little crazy right now. You know, I don't have time for that. It's an immediate, instant obedience to what God asks you to do. God, I trust you, therefore I'm going to do what you call me to do, even when it doesn't make sense. The greatest evidence of the fear of God is complete obedience. This is how I would describe it. The fear of the Lord is an ongoing, perpetual, continual attitude of your heart that moves you to choose over and over and over again to obey God when it would be easier to do something else. It's a constant attitude in your heart that moves you to choose over and over to obey God when it would be easier to do something else. It's not customized Christianity. It's not picking and choosing what parts of God that you like or what you want or what fits your lifestyle. It's a life that's fully and wholly submitted, surrendered to Jesus. Where we want to honor him. Where it's not about what feels the best for me, what I want. It's about his will. Because we love him. Because we respect him. Therefore we have a reverent awe and fear of him. And because we do, we want to obey him. Too often in today's church we see much of the opposite. I'll serve you, God. But I still want to hook up with my girlfriend or boyfriend. I'm still going to do that. I see it all the time. I believe in you, but I'm not going to stop looking up things on my phone or on the computer when no one's around. It's just kind of how I deal with things when I'm a little overstressed. I'll follow you, but I'm not tithing. That's my money, and I don't care. I'm not going to surrender that area of my life. I'll say the whole prayer thing. I'll go to church every now and then. But I'm not going to surrender every area of my life. And to tell you the truth, it's kind of ridiculous that you would even ask me. That's the attitude that we see over and over. And this tragedy that is often passed off for Christianity in our culture. There could be nothing farther from truly following Christ than that mentality. This idea that I can believe in God and have absolutely no reverence for him whatsoever and think it's okay. Again, I don't want this pendulum to swing back over here to this legalist idea, but at the same time, I will not stand here and tell you that we have spiritual license to do whatever we want and that God's just okay with that. I want us to live in such a way that because of the grace of Jesus, because of his mercy, that our only reasonable response is to love him as a Father, to respect him as a God of creation, to hold a reverent fear of who he is, and because of that our desire would be obedience. So great. It's a lot of stuff. What does that have to do with a middle school or high school student in Columbus, Georgia? How is this going to have any impact on my life? I'm going to ask you two questions. First one is this. In what area of your life are you not fearing God? And I'm going to tell you how you can figure that out. In what area of your life are you not obeying God? That will make it very clear to you which area that you hold no reverence or fear for. Second question I want to ask you is, what are you going to do? Identifying the problem is great. But it does nothing if we don't take action, if we don't move in the direction of the solution. If you say nothing, hey, I'm not going to do nothing about it, let's just call it what it is. You believe in God, but you don't fear him. You have no reverence for who he is. But I believe that some of us in this room are going to begin to recognize, if we're not already, that you know what, there are those areas in my life. There are those areas where I didn't even recognize it before, but I've been doing things and kind of just ignoring this conviction. Maybe someone who's dealing with some unconfessed sins or things in your life that have just become a cycle. Right? You get stuck here, and you kind of get over it for a little while. You start kind of coming back to God, but it's still kind of nagging there, and eventually it just comes right back over the top, and it's just a cycle over and over and over of this same sin in your life that you just can't seem to break free of. God's going to show you that it's time to confess that. Not just to him, but to somebody else that you trust. That doesn't mean going and telling everybody at your school. That's a bad idea. To find other Christians that you can trust that are going to help you, to hold you accountable in those areas. Or maybe for someone here, it's God's been leading you to do something and you just haven't done it. He's been wanting you to move, to take that step forward, to do something, and you just kind of been putting it off. But because you love him, because you respect him, I believe that you're going to move on what he put in your life. I don't know what it looks like in your life, but deep down I believe that you do. What is the fear of God? The fear of God is an ongoing posture in my heart that moves me to continually choose to obey God, to do the right thing, when it would be easier to do something else. In the world of customized Christianity, where that's the norm, I want this part of God, I don't want that part. My desire is that we would be a ministry that says, I won't participate in that anymore. I want all of who God is. And because of who He is, we love Him and we will respect Him. And because we love Him and respect Him, we will have a reverence for Him that will drive us to want to obey Him. Not because we have to, but because we get to. Because God is worthy of a totally committed life from us. That we would be a ministry that would say, God, I want to give you all of who I am, because the reality is He gave us all of who He was in the person of Jesus. that He would even care what I have to say is amazing. That God I can't help but love. The God who created me to be in a relationship with Him. But I also have to have a respect and an honor and an awe of the God who created the universe in mere words. Who gave me a relationship that I did not deserve and had no right to. It's love plus respect that equals the reverent fear of God. One of the greatest stories in the Bible about this subject is in Genesis 22. And this story to me is still, many times I've read it, it's really hard for me to kind of wrap my whole head around. When God asked Abraham, whose greatest desire in life was to have a son. That was his greatest desire. And for decade after decade after decade after decade, he waited. Finally, he has a son. And then God asks him, he says, Abraham, go sacrifice the son that you love, your only son. The thing that you wanted the most, the thing that you've waited on the most in life. Sacrifice. Abraham, because he loves God, because he respects God, because he fears God, he obeys Him. He takes his son up this mountain, he lays him on an altar, he takes a knife, he lifts it above his son that he loves with all of his heart, the object of his prayers and his greatest human desire he had. He prepares to obey God in the most difficult situation imaginable. And then an angel of the Lord mercifully stays the hand of Abraham and he says, don't lay a hand on this boy. Don't do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. If you're a note taker, I want you to write this down. The greatest evidence of the reverent fear of God in your life is complete obedience to God. The greatest evidence of the fear of God is complete obedience to God. It's not partial obedience. It's not, listen, I'll do what you say as long as it kind of doesn't put me too far out of the way. It really just depends on what it is. It's not a delayed obedience. I'll do it when I get around to it, when I have time. Life's a little crazy right now. You know, I don't have time for that. It's an immediate, instant obedience to what God asks you to do. God, I trust you, therefore I'm going to do what you call me to do, even when it doesn't make sense. The greatest evidence of the fear of God is obedience.